The disparity between the Eastern and Western conferences is genuinely alarming, and it's been like this for a really long time. But with Tyrese Halliburton's Achilles injury, the Milwaukee Bucks falling out of relevancy, and the Boston Celtics being early first round exits, the gap between the two conferences is getting really hard to ignore. And then ultimately, when you take into account the elite basketball that we saw the game previous with Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs giving us genuinely one of the greatest NBA playoff games in the history of basketball. And so coming into this game, I was looking forward to a similarly as competitive ball game. And that's just not what we got. It's not. What we instead saw was the same old New York Knicks who are a coin toss in terms of mental fortitude, focus, and just genuinely wanting to win the game more than the opposing team for more than 2 to 3 quarters in the game. And then on the flip side, we see the same Cleveland Cavaliers team that choked against Tyrese Halliburton and the Indiana Pacers the year before. Also, please Knicks fans, don't get me wrong, that fourth quarter and overtime was a ton of fun to watch. And I really hope I don't come off as a hater when I say this, but I just can't help but think about the first 3 quarters where I didn't have anything resembling the feeling of excitement. When you think back to game 1 San Antonio versus OKC, it felt like the entire game, I mean, like from tip-off all the way to double overtime was like a boxing match between 2 heavyweight boxers meeting at the center of the ring, going blow for blow. And then when I think back to tonight's Knicks versus Cavs match, it felt like watching 2 lightweights jab each other to death until one of them accidentally hits a nasty counter to knock his opponent out, which is objectively still a great strategy to not get CTE and all, but it's just not entertaining for the viewers to watch. You see what I'm saying? These Western Conference teams are truly setting a standard for what higher echelon playoff basketball is supposed to look like, and the East has a lot of catching up to do. Because what we saw tonight was honestly sloppy on both sides. If the winner was up to me, I'd say both teams lost tonight, because the team waiting for them in the finals, whether that be OKC or San Antonio, is not going to lose to a team like New York or the Cleveland Cavaliers who just make so many damn mistakes. It's not happening. They've got to turn things around. The Cavs turned over that ball a million times in that first half and somehow still had a comfortable double-digit lead closing out the half. And then the Knicks kind of just lie over on their back as the Cavs grow that lead as large as 22 points. And then bam, within a span of 8 minutes, I watched as Jalen Brunson and company went on a 28-6 run as Donovan Mitchell watched and James Harden couldn't hit a shot. And next thing you know, what should have been a blowout victory game 1 in New York, mind you, turned into an overtime game in Madison Square Garden. And then to further exasperate the situation as if it wasn't bad enough as it is, James Harden decided to fully submit into the playoff choker narrative, going 2 for 10 in that second half. And I think what just really disappointed me about James Harden tonight, well, despite this being one of his most egregious playoff performances in his career, is the fact that we got to see what CJ McCollum of the Atlanta Hawks was able to do to Jalen Brunson, abusing the size mismatch and shooting over him. Someone who's similar to Harden in age and smaller than Harden in stature. A man who was a 0-time All-Star. And then we have you, James Harden, a goddamn Hall of Famer, a 3-time scoring champion, an 11-time All-Star, an MVP in this league, a top 75 player in the history of basketball itself. And you can't do better than 0 for 1 in an overtime you are largely responsible for. And then to make matters worse, you yourself get the Jalen Brunson treatment and get absolutely picked on the defensive end at the big size of 6'6" by none other than Jalen Brunson himself. You're looking like a damn traffic cone out there. And if you Google tonight's Cleveland Cavaliers versus the New York Knicks second half highlights, what you will see is Jalen Brunson scoring on James Harden again and again and again. To the point that Knicks head coach Mike Brown in his post-game interview said, and I quote, "It was no secret we were attacking Harden." I truly just can't keep defending this. It is my journalistic duty to speak on this because what I saw tonight was truly that disastrous. It was atrocious. It was blasphemous. It was abysmal. Damn it, if you're a Cleveland Cavaliers fan, I wouldn't be mad at you if you went as far as to say what James Harden did tonight in Game 1 in Madison Square Garden was an act of basketball terrorism. That's how bad James Harden was in the clutch. And the worst part about all of this is, well, it's not an anomaly. This is who James Harden is. We've seen the same old story time and time again. And in the past, I've been naive to it, but not anymore, because this is a reality. And the reality of the situation is, James Harden, you've got to do better.